Things you missed in Bruce Almighty. Movie mistakes from the 2000s. Selfish TV news personality Bruce Nolan, played by Jim Carrey, longs to be in the coveted anchorman position. Things don't go his way, and he soon blames his troubles on God, played by Morgan Freeman, who grants Bruce with the universal powers of the Almighty in order to test if a hilarious human can do a better job of running the world. I enjoyed the movie, and almost peed my own couch watching Steve Carell in the tongue-tied botched broadcast scene. However your chortles choose to come out, even if you are the mighty miracle from this movie's message, there were a few movie mistakes and things you might have missed in Bruce Almighty. Until I watched this movie again, I had completely missed that a few of the scenes in the movie were shot in the same set as Back to the Future. The Hill Valley Courthouse can be seen a few times during the movie, and gave me a little hit of that Member Berries nostalgia. Spoiler alerts. Things you missed. Are fingers supposed to be there? During Bruce's Walter Cronkite Cookie Crumbles speech, when Max the dog is caught using the chair as an inside urinal, did you catch the finger of the trainer that popped into the scene? Bad trainer, no finger. Another finger out of place shows up as Bruce is playing a middle F sharp note for Evan Baxter. He tucks his thumb into his palm, but in the next shot his thumb is sticking out as the camera cuts to Evan. One time during the many pager scenes, Bruce grabs the pager and his finger positions are suddenly different in the next shot. Also, it turns out the phone number on the pager was a different number when the movie was released in theaters. It had to be edited because more than a few movie lovers called the phone number wanting to speak to God. I can't imagine what they felt like doing when they called the number and found out God was Margaret from Maryland. No one can get a hold of God, as he was busy mopping the floors. After the holy custodians finish cleaning in this scene, Bruce's hand positions change on top of the mop a few random times. Things you missed. Hairnets, hairs, and hairy things. Not many people notice the hairstyles or head accessories that characters wear in movies. Sometimes they don't always stay in place. During the interview at the bakery, the knot on Bruce's hairnet slowly moves on the right side of his head across the middle of his face. After the baker/nasal spelunker picks his nose, the camera cuts to the crew and back to Bruce. The knot shifts over. As the scene moves along, the hairnet knot moves directly to the center of his forehead. Right as we watch Bruce's soul crushed on live television, his hair becomes completely crushed by the weight of the waterfalls of Niagara. The camera cuts to Grace, and then suddenly his hair is dry and perfectly parted. Now, Bruce and the boat people on the Maid of the Mist 7 are supposed to be in New York as they visit Niagara Falls. WKBW-TV Channel 7 is in Buffalo, New York. Some shots during the Maid of the Mist scene are from the Ontario, Canada side of Niagara Falls. Bruce Nolan, the free-willed dungeon master, attempts to control Grace at her school. His hair coif is gloriously parted on his right side, but after he jumps up on the brick wall, the camera cuts back and his hair is parted the other way. Grace hugs Bruce while in the hospital bed, and her hair is covering her face. But in the next shot, her hair is suddenly behind her ear. Things you missed. What's up with your face? As Bruce tempts fate on the road and is hit by a semi-truck, his facial wounds don't stay in the same place. When he wakes up in the hospital, they look like they're from a bedpan and not a truck. How do I know this? Trust me. Jim Carrey does a fantastic Clint Eastwood impersonation in this movie, which is an homage to Jim's earlier career as a budding stand-up comedian where he performed all facets of facial manipulations. It's definitely something to behold. Bruce sticks up for someone who's being bullied and gets beat up by multiple someones. His lip wound seems like a pretty good knuckle stain. However, in the next scene while talking to Grace, he still has the boo-boo on his right temple, but his busted lip is gone. During the scene where Bruce meets up with the group that beat him up, the sleeveless jeans jacket guy's goatee is hardly recognizable and borderline prepubescent. But after the monkey business, he calls Bruce El Diablo, and his goatee grows in thick like a man. Now you're a man. Things you missed. Strange things happen around animals. As Bruce gets his smite on with the group that attacked him, and after the monkey breaks the seal, in the next shot, the goon on the ground behind Bruce suddenly moves from where he passed out. We catch a glimpse of his new fetal position a few shots later. The monkey used in this alleyway scene is the same monkey that appeared in the movie Outbreak, and played Marcel in the TV show Friends. You might also have seen Katie the Capuchin monkey at Angel Stadium doing her signature rally monkey dance. As the police dog digs up the body of Jimmy Hoffa, Bruce is talking to the news crew as his camera eyepiece suddenly pops up before he starts playing the video umpet. Trump video? Bruce can't get a hold of Grace to talk, so he calls on his canine friend, but the brass kettle behind Max disappears when Max gets up to change the television channel. Who's a good boy? Things you missed. Mind your manners at the table. When Bruce is at the table eating, chaos emerges. We watch the ketchup and mustard bottles behind the old man at the counter switch. As the waitress pours Bruce some coffee, watch the mug rotate around as the handle appears in a few different places. The mustard and ketchup bottles switch positions again. Bruce grabs a spoon that appears from his mouth, but his fingers swap positions after they cut to the man at the mustard and ketchup just swapped again. In the next shot, as the waitress brings the sacred soup, pay no attention to the revolving condiments, but on the table, suddenly there's a crumpled napkin next to Bruce, an additional salt shaker is behind the menu, and the other coffee mug has rotated. When Bruce wakes up to Grace making breakfast for him, he sits down at the table. When the shot shows Grace's perspective, the ketchup slides down the side of the untouched bottle. In the next shot, the ketchup has moved closer to him and the creamers have slid over. Bruce shakes it up and squirts a little on his plate, right on the bread. In the following shots, there is no splattered ketchup on the bread. While Bruce is at a fancy restaurant with Grace, the waiter pours some red wine into Bruce's wine glass. The camera cuts to Tony Bennett. When it cuts back, there is no red wine in the empty glass, and only water in the other glass. Speaking of wine and water, there were many instances of religious symbolism and context that appear in Bruce Almighty. As if it were a wedding in Galilee, Bruce walks up the stairs, and the water being poured into his glass turns to wine. A nod to the biblical stories of walking on water. Even a golden calf can symbolize the Old Testament story of Moses becoming upset at the followers of the idolic golden calf. Bruce is portrayed as having the powers of the Almighty. Bruce works at Channel 7. God, the one who granted Bruce's gift, works at the Omnipresence building. A nod to heaven with the stairway on the 7th floor. The number 7 appears more than a few times in the movie, even in hidden places. The Omnipresence building has a directory with everything on the 7th floor. If we use Chaldean numerology to represent each letter with a number, and we add all the letters together, reducing the double digits down to a single digit, then add the number representation of all the floors together, all the floors add up to, you guessed it, 7. And who were the Chaldeans? An ancient Mesopotamian astrological culture dating back over 5,000 years, who believed that numbers contain the essence of the divine. Symbols even appear with Bruce's extra fingers, and the number 7 appearing in the veins on his arm. Context aside, all this appeared to have gotten the movie banned in Egypt for its sacrilegious content, and having actors playing the role of God. Things you missed. God can do strange things. Did you know that the role of God was planned to be played by other actors? Jack Nicholson, who recently played the devil in The Witches of Eastwick, was an original option but wasn't interested in playing the role of God. Robert De Niro was also a top choice to don the omnipotent alabaster suit and play God in Bruce Almighty. Earlier, when Bruce and God meet, God takes off his hat and drops it straight down in front of the ladder, and he tosses his coveralls behind the column. However, after Bruce takes a ride on the filing cabinet, all articles of clothing have disappeared from the floor. I'm probably crazy. I swear, as we see God reading Bruce's file, there is text written in the file folder. But when God quotes Bruce and puts the folder down, it looks like a blank page. Watch when Bruce is walking on water with Morgan Freeman as the beads are pulled out of the water. Did you notice the fishing line attached to the bracelet? During the Mark Twain chili cook-off, the meteor strikes the ground and creates a giant plume of smoke. As Bruce runs towards it, the rising smoke just stops, as if it was frozen in time. Things you missed. Random stuff happening. Odd things happen to clothing during the movie, like when Bruce's shirt collar is tucked in while talking to his boss, then suddenly pops out from under his jacket, right as he tests the sandwich ability to resist gravity. When Grace visits Bruce in the hospital after his kneeling truck incident, we catch a glimpse of the tip of a microphone in the top portion of the shot. During Evan Baxter's news report, his pen will not stay in one place. It's as if the pen and his tiny little nipples went to France. Bruce's parking spot at the television station has a sign on the iron fence, additional parking in rear. Maybe that's for a monkey. Later, as Bruce walks back to his car, the sign is gone, but when he finds himself in a fight with the monkey bum gang, the sign reappears. As Bruce drives away from his meeting with God, his car hood seems perfectly fine after crashing into a light pole a few scenes earlier. If you pause it right when Bruce is driving his car through the Back to the Future lot, after the rear windshield is shot out, you can see this random guy standing behind the light pole. Is this a cameraman in the background waiting for his scene? Or just someone who really loves light fixtures? As Bruce is hyper answering all of his prayer emails, he drinks from his mug and places it down with his left hand. A few shots later, he picks it up on the other side with his right hand. On a normal overcast day, the blood drive sign has no direct sunlight hitting the banner. After a few shots, they pan back to the sign, and there's clear sunlight rays. Grace is embarrassed as the camera cuts to the crowd, and then the woman next to her is suddenly holding a child and the sunlight is gone. When Bruce and Grace hug, the sunlight is back on the sign. Did you notice Bruce's sleeve being wrapped over his forearm? But halfway through the scene, it switches to being rolled higher up with a bandage around it? At the finale of the movie, the camera closes in on a shaggy-looking man who changes into Morgan Freeman. If you watch the sign in the background, it changes from Frankie's to Kinkies. And is that a backwards number 7? And support the channel by throwing a like and a subscribe. When I'm not watching movies or writing and illustrating children's books, like Simon My Pet Dragon, check out the link in the description. I'm making videos, so any like, love, or feedback I get is greatly appreciated. Be good to each other.